now we are at the panel number 2, which is the supply side, how to prepare for the post-virus customers from China, how to use the new paradigm for successful business. And we have 6 participants, David from EPIC Irish Immigration Museum, Nicolette from Budapest Airport, and already we have been told that she will talk other aspects than Mate did. Rebecca, you just met her, Ghazi from Landways in Tirana, Samantha from Manchester Airport, and Anders Christensen, the general manager of Albatross, based in Beijing since many years. So maybe David, if I can start with you.
Of course.
So, and all of you, please also briefly first then introduce yourself. But it's very interesting to see that Ireland is obviously a wonderful place, and you're based in Dublin, which is a wonderful city, but it is not, you not automatically pass by like you have in Germany, where we are based here. This is the center of Europe. So a lot of Chinese people visit us because they have to, because they're transiting, or for you said in the interview that so many other places are already overcrowded and or have been at least overcrowded until the end of last year. So for a place like Ireland and for a museum of Irish immigration, how have you been going on in the past, and how do you plan to go on in the future to attract Chinese visitors, when you would think maybe Irish immigration, why do the Chinese care about Irish immigration? That's not their topic. So but I know that you're very successful, and you have been given prizes as the best museum in Europe and so on. And Ireland has been quite successful as a destination with the Chinese market. Even so, you need an extra visa, and there is the Northern Ireland, Republic Islands things and so on, and the Brexit anxiety, what have you. So tell us a bit about yourself, and how did you do the magic, and how do you want to continue the magic?
Sure, Wolfgang. It's delighted to be joining you here today. So as Wolfgang mentioned there, I'm David Cleary. I'm from EPIC, the Irish Immigration Museum. We're located in the very centre of Dublin, in the heart of Dublin, Ireland's famous capital city. And at EPIC, what we do is we tell the story of Irish immigration. So we talk about the history and the culture of the island itself, and talk about the reasons why people would have left the island and they would have gone all over the world. So essentially, you straight away mentioned it there, Wolfgang, why would Chinese visitors be interested in Irish immigration? And the reasons are that Irish immigration has been caused by the history of the island. So we talk about the history of the island, we talk about the history of the people, and what people have experienced over hundreds and hundreds of years. And this story comes down to people. We are a museum of people. We talk about Irish people, and we talk about Irishness. And it's something that you mentioned at the very, very start of it. It was your KPI, your embeddedness, talking about kinship and connections. Essentially, what we talk about at EPIC is those connections. And EPIC actually stands for something. It's not just a kind of a buzzword about how great we think we are or anything like that. EPIC stands for every person is connected. And that's what we show in the museum. We show that the connections that Irish people made all over the world, whether they did emigrate to China, to New Zealand, to the UK, to United States of America, to Canada or South America, they made connections in their new communities. So it's a story of migration, it's a story of people, it's a story of connections. So how we get that across to our Chinese visitors is very much reaching out to that kinship, that sense of emotion, that sense of being, that sense of self. Every country in the world has their own migration story. And I suppose particularly prevalent in today's society, when we hear a lot about migration and immigration and different forms of it. So EPIC tells the story of that from an Irish perspective over hundreds and hundreds of years. So it's not just, I suppose, telling the story of these Irish people, but it's looking at you know, what the socioeconomic factors in Ireland were for those hundreds of years to explain these stories, you know. And I suppose to answer your question about how would Ireland attract people coming from China, we're as an island nation, as you said, we're not in the center of the continent. You know, people really have to make their way to come to us. But we have a lot going for us in terms of our sustainability. Ireland is seen as a green nation already. So prior to this COVID pandemic, Ireland was always seen as being clean and being green. So it's something that we will particularly be focusing on for the coming years. That green message, that there are plenty of wide open spaces. We are quite a small island nation. So obviously we rely on air travel and people visiting by sea, but we are a relatively small population for the island itself. So there's lots of green, open, wide spaces. So particularly for the Chinese visitors, our feedback that we get from working with our colleagues in Tourism Ireland in the market, but also our colleagues in Fáilte Ireland, our national tourist body here, is that the Chinese visitors are particularly attracted to the greenery, the scenery, the wide open spaces. And again, that's something that will aid us from the COVID pandemic. People will want to get out into, you know, the landscape. They may not want to visit the large, bustling, overcrowded city centres. And obviously Europe being such a busy location, and particularly the cities such as maybe Paris and Rome, they're known maybe for being tourist destinations in those high season, the summer periods. And that's where we touch on that over tourism and overcrowding. The sense and the feeling that we are getting is people may not want to expose themselves to these sorts of bustling metropolises. So while Epic is located in the centre of Dublin, in the capital city, Dublin is still a relatively small city. You know, within 15, 20 minutes, you're out in the mountains or out in the seaside. So it's quite a positive thing for people to still come to Dublin and to visit the rest of Ireland. Dublin obviously is the hub for the island. You mentioned that we've got 2 states here on the island. We have the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland. And that has created some problems for just having a border on the island for this post-COVID time. You know, there are different rules either side of the border, so people can't travel as freely as they maybe would have under the Good Friday Agreement, obviously, just purely in terms of restrictions on how far people can travel. But purely in terms of the attracting the Chinese visitors for Ireland as a green destination, to be seen as safe, to be seen as welcoming, something that we have always hopefully been seen as, Ireland as a nation of people welcoming people with open arms. So hopefully that answers a little bit of your question about the overcrowding situation, Wolfgang.
Yeah, so thanks for that. And obviously, as I mentioned in my presentation at the beginning, so there has been clear survey results that the Chinese have been saying, we want to go to smaller, less crowded, and also new places. So, and I think Ireland will fit this description very, very well. And also, yeah, I can say from my personal experience, really, it is so easy in Ireland to start to talk to people. You go to a pub and within 5 minutes you have 10 new friends, which is, try this in Germany, it's much harder. So going across the Irish Channel to the other side, we arrive at Samantha's place. Samantha, can you tell us how the and we just talked about the 2 islands. What is more frightening you, Brexit or COVID-19?
Hi, thank you for having me. First off, I work for Manchester Airport Group, so we own Manchester Airport, Stansted and East Midlands, and collectively serve about 60 million passengers a year. I think both come with their challenges, and I also think the approach to both is probably, there are some similarities. I mean, we see air travel as being directly linked to the economy, and both rely heavily on each other. So, I mean, we work very closely with government and industry bodies to make sure that aviation is prioritised and seen as a strategic way that the country can keep its connections with the rest of the world, which is going to be important as we recover from COVID-19 and obviously as we go into Brexit. Obviously, air travel boosts tourism, but it also boosts trade, and it can form important partnerships, which we've seen at Manchester. We've developed quite a strong connection with China, particularly up in the northern region. But I think there's going to be three things that are going to be key. I think COVID-19, we need to see how it plays out, and it's going to be based on coordination, particularly between countries in terms of how different countries are managing their regulations and how they're controlling their borders, and working closely with these countries to come to sort of mutually beneficial agreements and air corridors, for example, in terms of the UK, are going to be key in terms of driving passengers. Similar for Brexit, we're going to need to keep these relationships strong and keep the dialogue open. I think as well, in terms of how we approach it, consistency is going to be a core feature as well, in terms of the methods we put in place and the regulations we have in place to welcome visitors to the UK. It needs to be the same for domestic travellers, for European travellers, and when travel opens again to our long haul travellers. And I believe that kind of crosses both Brexit and COVID-19 equally, in terms of keeping these coordination and links strong as we go into it. So I'd probably, in the immediate, COVID-19 has obviously impacted the travel industry in a way never seen before. So our key focus at the moment is on recovery and on driving our passengers and bringing visitors back to the regions, back to the UK. But I think longer term, how we manage these and how we work with our partners, we'll learn a lot of lessons, I think, going forward in terms of how we can all work together and manage the risks that come with these events. And particularly in aviation, we now have regulations that cover global, European, and our local government as well have regulations put in place, particularly for COVID-19, in terms of how we manage sort of health and safety within the airport environment and travel environment. So now we have those frameworks, then that will help us, guide us as we go forwards, as we work to kind of bring ourselves out of this. And we can see the benefits that come with having these strong relationships. We've seen from the Manchester flight to Beijing the impact it's had on the visitor economy, on students, on trade, on investment. So there are so many benefits to be had with having these direct links. So we will continue to push for more of these in the future, and we'll be working very closely with our airline partners to keep those routes open.
It seems old age is setting in. Sorry. So yeah, we had the pleasure to work with Manchester in the past, and I think Manchester is also a good example for finding niche markets. So in the chat, we have one of our participants from a Chinese from Malaysia who lived a long time in Europe, and he also mentioned what has been said by Istvan at the very beginning. Europe is big, and there are many places less visited than they should be, and whereas we have over tourism in some other places, and so there's something in China, just to take this example, which is called red tourism, Honglu. So visiting places connected to the history of communism and socialism, and so obviously Manchester is a place where Friedrich Engels has been living for a long time, and so we have been working with some partners on this going to Wuppertal and to Trier, where Marx and Engels were born, and then go to London, where Marx grave is, and then of course going up to Manchester. And we talk about a niche market, and inside China domestically, every year this niche market has 1 billion trips. So it's not that much of a niche. Half of it is school classes going to the next revolutionary monument 10 kilometers away. But there is a lot of travel, and it's not only domestic. There's a lot of groups visiting now Russia and former Yugoslavia and so on. And this is, beside all the other interesting and nice things in Manchester. So that is one way where you can put yourself on a map in a special, very special way. So this, our friend from Malaysia is saying, Europeans don't underestimate what you have. So be more aware how other people will appreciate what we take for granted. And I think this is from all the things we have been discussing also in the first panel, that this idea, okay, be open-minded, take a step back, use the time to look anew, look afresh of your business and the opportunities. So maybe jumping over to China, Anders, it's already after 8 p.m. So I hope you had your dinner before. So thanks for joining us. So well, you said in the interview, and I was shocked to read this, that we will have to give people information material about safety measures and virus for the next 5 to 6 years. Wow, that's a long time. So can you please explain shortly, what are you doing? Which business you are in, and then say, well, you take a rather long-term view before it gets better.
Okay. Hi, Wolfgang. Yeah, it's 6 o'clock in Beijing, so it's still okay. I haven't had my dinner yet. I work for Albatross Group. We have extensive business with China for many years. We have the Great Wall Marathon here in Beijing, and we also have cruise ships in Greenland and Antarctica, and we are right now the largest B2B supplier of polar travel to these destinations, and out of China. We have about 2,000 Chinese who are going with us every year, and we've built a substantial business, which of course now is lagging a little bit. What I meant about us having to take a long view on this COVID is that I think it will be lingering for some time yet, and I also think that we have to work very much on the safety. I am in the cruise industry, and that is one of the industries that were hit very hard and are very vulnerable to the COVID. Of course we all are, but the cruise industry is especially pressured now. So the approach we've taken and we've been trying to work on is we are staying in very close contact with our Chinese partners here, because I think the first ones who will know how outbound travel out of China will look like is the Chinese travel agencies, likely the Chinese state-owned travel agencies. We know that CNTA and Cultural Ministry will send out census to understand where is the market now. They'll also give, they'll try to collect information from the industry and to see where are we now and what are you looking at. And I think this will happen during the autumn. And when that happens, we would like to sit next to the Chinese travel agencies and understand what their needs are, and also to understand what they are being told by the government, because I'm sure we can see now the embassies, the Chinese embassies in each country are now setting up rules and systematic structures for how to get back into China for foreigners. China has been closed more or less off until now, and we see that structure slowly taking shape. And I'm sure the same thing will happen here. And as previously mentioned before, what we will see is a gradual opening up regionally. So we will see Japan, Thailand, Vietnam, Korea probably being some of the first testing grounds for it. This Safe to Save hub, which was actually created during the Olympics in 2008, where Beijing turned into a Safe to Save hub when I worked at that time here in Beijing. So I think that system will be implemented. It will have consequences for how we receive people in Europe. So I think before making too many plans, before setting too many things up, we have to wait and see what actually will happen here and what will be the first kind of flows that will go through to Thailand, to Vietnam, and to Hong Kong. And I'm sure these rules and regulations will be in place soon in the sometime in the autumn. I think a deadline now is about 1st of October when the airline should be sort of implemented, all given how the virus kind of moves around. And I think the reason why I said 5 years is that I think this will be around for a time, maybe even a decade, where we have to somehow prove that we have virus setups, all of us, outside of China and even in China. And it's going to be basically one more thing that we have to tick off on our list. We are in the travel expedition industry, which means we already have a very long checklist for us. It will be just one more point. We have distance parameters for penguins. They have to be a good 4 meters away from them. And we also have what we call IECO rules, because we travel in very sensitive areas. So for us, this is not a completely new thing. There are very specific rules traveling in the Arctic regarding litters and regarding how you interact with the locals. You don't pet local animals. They might be very savage and all of these. So for us, it will be just one more on the list. And from our experience, having Chinese tourists over the last 5 to 10 years, is that they are actually very good at following the rules and regulations, but it is on us to very precisely formulate what we want from them and what we expect from them when they are in the destination. And if you argue and you show videos, we have videos in Mandarin, and you interact with the clients when they are at the destination, they follow rules. We've not had issues. Of course, they get excited and then you basically in a nice, firm, friendly way say, wait, but that's not just a Chinese thing. That can be an American, European, Scandinavian thing too.
So you would agree, Roger, you before said basically the same, that if you give them clear rules so they know what they're supposed to follow, then they will, almost all of them will follow that.
Yeah, and what we also learned is that pre-travel information is not as good as destination on-site information. So we actually on the vessels and pre-departure, we basically have information meetings, fairly long ones, where we go through all the information and we make sure that people are aware of what they're actually signing up for. And we repeat ourselves quite a lot. And also because there is a lot of information to take in when you're a tourist. And I think it will be more or less the same with the COVID. You'll have to repeat yourself a lot. You have to, signage has to be very strong, especially on the vessel, both in Mandarin and in English, saying, please remember to wear masks, please remember to use hand sanitizers. And I think that will be around from now on. That is a thing that's not going to change.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. As a former tour guide and as a professor, I know it doesn't matter what you're sending, it matters what is received. So repetition is a good way.
And you lead by example.
So just maybe a brief answer. I don't want you to discuss politics, but from all the surveys we see that a good part of the Chinese international travelers are saying, oh, I'm waiting for the opportunity to get out again and start again international travel. So do you see that there is also a pressure from the people to say we want, when it becomes possible again, we want to get out, and that the government also has to take care of that?
Yes, of course. I think there is no doubt that Chinese people are waiting to go traveling again. I noticed a very funny trend at the office we have is that the girls, when we have a lunch break, they wipe out their phones and they go on TikTok, and then they actually follow Chinese people who live in Seoul, and they basically take them around the shopping malls on the TikTok Douyin things, and they actually sell clothes while they walk around. We've seen it in the shopping malls in the streets of Copenhagen too. And they basically pick up products that they then show, and then they walk around with them, show it out, and they can actually start laughing and yelling and saying, "I want to buy this," based on this TikTok Douyin thing that's going on now, and it's extremely popular. And so I think just that shows we have another thing going for us in the travel industry is that I don't know if any of us actually noticed, but the largest cohort of Chinese people aged 55 to 56 will actually retire within the next 10 years. So we're looking at 300 million people who will likely retire very soon. So demographics are weighing our way too, and these are probably going to be some of the most affluent and people with the greatest purchase power in the history of China. So
And time.
and they need traveling.
And more time.
Yes, yes.
But now
So,
the rich 40-something-year-olds, they have money, but they don't have time. They're so busy working.
yes,
So
yes.
that will be the first cohort of people with money and time.
We will see, likely the next 10 years will probably be the golden age of Chinese travel if we can get this weird virus out of the way.
Wow, this is a sentence. Okay, I will quote you on that.
Demographically, I don't know. But yeah,
Okay.
and then of course, when you mention politics, I think European travel agents and the European Union should work on lobbying and how to clarify travel rules, clarify visa rules, and do dialogues here in China, because again, dialogue and constant reminders of issues that you face is extremely important, and especially in tourism, because we are also very sensitive to changes in visa policies or national sentiments. So in that way, Europe is positioned very well for the future, I hope, or should be. Yeah.
Wow, okay, that's very interesting. So when I read the interview, which is in our book, I thought, wow, this is a rather pessimistic view, but now I see I have to read it again. So you were until now the most optimistic in today's seminar. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Let's go on to Nicolette. So coming back to Budapest, and we heard already from Mate something about how you have been going with this market. So please give us part 2 of the story.
Thank you for the question, Professor, and welcome to everyone in the webinar. I am Nicolette from Budapest Airport, and in the past 1 year, I've been working on really interesting Chinese-focused product development projects that would create a better and more quality connection to our passengers. So what supports this is that we have luckily a very forward-looking and progressive thinking management who set out the initiative to turn Budapest Airport into a Chinese-friendly airport. And then, as my colleague Mate have introduced, following years of hard work and discussions with airline partners in China, over the past 1 year, there have been new flight openings in several destinations to bigger Chinese cities like Beijing, Shanghai, Chengdu, Xi'an, Chongqing. And then the COVID came, but before that, we were already set out on a road to become, and I think we are quite there, to become a Chinese-friendly airport. And I'm sharing the view of Anders and Rebecca and being optimistic about it, that Chinese travelers are going to return. And once we are out of this situation, regardless how long it takes, in the end, in the long run, they will return. And so our goals are not changed in this respect, and we are preparing ourselves to receive the Chinese passengers. So what we have done here is slowly building it up with just guiding, shopping guides and tax refund guides in Chinese, and then adding more and more signages over all the airports. And then this year we completed an overall wayfinding signage exchange, and now everything in the terminal, from the very entrance all the way to the gates, is displayed in Hungarian, English, and Chinese. And this is a very important cornerstone in what I also believe and agree with the professor, that trust is the new currency in this new situation. And giving the message that we are here and we are guiding you in your own language, and it's not digital, an application that could be deleted and removed. It's stable signage, which might go against being digital, but still has the message that this is something stable, this is going to stay, and this is going to be here for all the Chinese passengers regarding what applications they use. This was one of the latest development that we had in this respect. And also, tying back to Rebecca's presentation, we introduced Chinese payment methods over the course of the past year, which has definitely proved the prior expectations. This is what Chinese passengers and travelers prefer to use when they are here. So the sales and revenues in those stores who took the risk and introduced it, well, actually there was no risk. It was quite sure that this would happen, and it's proven right. They show a lot more interest and willingness to shop in stores and engage in the airport ecosystem if they have their own methods to pay, which is Alipay, WeChat Pay in some of the stores, that's not overall yet, and also Union Pay. If they, for larger transactions, they might still use cards and not applications. Then going along this, these were the hard aspects of what we are trying to introduce in the Chinese-friendly initiatives. And we got to the soft aspects of it when you sort of need the people to connect to them as well. So we set out cultural awareness workshops, partially for our retail partners in the airport, those who were not on board yet with the Chinese payment methods and maybe needed some encouragement and understanding why is it necessary and why it would be for their interest, and also for our own staff working in the terminal. So for the retail partners, we had long discussions about what Chinese preferences are as of product placement in the store, opening conversations, basic expressions, what Chinese people would want to take as snacks on the flights, because the retailers just didn't understand that passengers, Chinese passengers, come in, don't buy anything, leave, and that had a bad impression on the Chinese passenger, bad feelings in our own partners. So it was not successful at all. And then coming from this, they were really eager and thirsty to understand more about the Chinese passengers. So working on mutual understanding has been really well received at Budapest Airport. On our own staff training, those are mainly the information terminal assistants who are working in the check-in halls, and they are actually the first people who meet the passengers when they enter the terminal. And we went through really typical situations that they might bump into with the Chinese passengers, groups standing here and there, looking for something with a paper. Is it a stamp? Is it tax refund? Is it passport, the boarding pass? So we learned very basic expressions and analyzed the situations that might bump into, and this made the check-in procedures, all procedures in the check-in hall much smoother. So this is where we are. And then now we are at the point when we still need to put effort into the social media communication, because this was all on site. And then the so-called zero moment of truth, when they're trying to research where they are going to, what possibilities they have, we still need to add to that. But as an airport, of course, one of the greatest challenges for us is that nobody actually travels for the airport experience itself, but for the destination of their choice. So what they're going to Google, Weibo, check on Baidu is not going to be us, first of all. So we somehow need to connect into the wider travel ecosystem with the right partners in Budapest, and through the right channels of social media. This is, of course, going to be WeChat and the WeChat mini programs that make it even more interactive. So we are in the procedure now of finding the right partners and messages for this. And then the right timing, because right now with no Chinese passengers, this is not when we could launch this. But we are on the preparations, and when the time is right, this is what we are going to take as the first next step. And I think what is essential in this really changing world with immediately changing preferences is to actually ask the Chinese passengers what they thought of their experience at the airport in Budapest. So we are going to put more emphasis on data collection, qualitative data collection from the passengers who are at the airport, leaving and arriving, with possibly simple QR codes, scanning questionnaires or personal questionnaires to see that the efforts that we've taken are coming out the way we meant them to be, and what the next step should be from their perspective. Because we're discussing many options with our partners in Budapest and among ourselves and partners, but we haven't really involved the passengers in qualitative answers. So that would be a very important part in defining what and how we should start out when the time is here again for our Chinese passengers.
Okay, Nicola, thanks a lot. Also, very, very interesting. And also, yes, I think I fully agree, especially also with your last point that we have the industry as a whole has not really tried hard enough to talk to the customers. And my experience has been over years that people would maybe also be criticizing Chinese customers for doing something they don't like them to do. But whenever we ask, okay, did you ever ask them why are they doing this? I mean, they don't destroy your water cookers because they're mean people. They just destroy it because there's no bowl where they can put their noodles into. They put the noodles into the water cooker. So if you give them a bowl, they will stop doing that. So, that's a simple example, but it seemed to me that very often we have been talking about the Chinese passengers, but not
without them.
And so this is certainly a good idea. And maybe just picking on the one point you said before, Rebecca, the question was the timing. So as far as I'm aware, Planet has just started a campaign connected with the Chinese market now. So even so, of course, also in the number of Chinese visitors is limited. But in Europe, if you are already in Europe, and there are of course a lot of Chinese students and expats already within Schengen area, they can travel now again. So you have some customers, but of course it's not the same as before. So can you explain to us why Planet has decided that now is the right time to help to your clients, your partners, to learn more about the Chinese market?
Of course, Wolfgang. So hello again. Happy to be here and to listen to all those great conversations. Really enjoyed listening to you, Nicolette. I think that are really, really great and efficient measures that you are taking at Budapest Airport. To answer your question, Wolfgang, or I think it was actually multiple questions at once. I will answer the first. Yes, what we are doing at the moment, or I mean, at Planet, we are all about assisting our merchant partners and our partners in the industry to better serve to international customers. So in the past, we used to have a very strong focus on non-EU tourists. That's not valid anymore for the future, because I mean, the international customer shopping at the merchant at the moment, or maybe eating in a restaurant at the moment, does not necessarily need to be a tourist. It can be one of the a member of the huge Chinese community, for example, living in Europe, which consists of more than 1 million Chinese living and staying in Europe. So, of course, now while for at the moment where the industry is missing out on Chinese tourists, we help our merchants also to see that there is potential there right now, and we help them to reach out to these regional Chinese, we call them, and we also help them to cater to these regional Chinese, for example, in terms of providing mobile payments, because also this target group is heavily using their preferred payment methods. So for example, we are just introducing mobile payments, our mobile payment methods at Selfridges, and we are seeing transactions right now, which are not transactions done by Chinese tourists, but transactions done by Chinese residents living in London. So there is a market there, and we feel as a provider of international payments, as a provider of international services, it is our responsibility to educate our partners about that. You can do revenues if you reach out to this community. But the second thing is, and I think that was also something you are mentioning, Wolfgang, is we feel it is our responsibility to share with our partners strategies like what Nicolette talked about, not just a punctual thing to do in order to welcome back tourists, but to share with them strategies to analyze their business and see what can they do to be best prepared for the future needs and the future demands of the Chinese tourists when they will be back. And we all don't know, none of us has this glass bubble where we can look in, the crystal bubble, I'm not sure what it's called in English, but crystal ball, thank you, where we can look in, and so we can't tell when this will be, but better take the time now, and they will be back, and use the time now to be best prepared. And what do I mean with this? I mean, I work in this industry for 7 years now, and I've seen a lot of things, and I've seen a lot of merchants, for example, which have just taken the Chinese for granted throughout all these years. They have taken them for granted. They haven't even thought about maybe training their staff, maybe to better understand the culture, but also maybe teaching them a few phrases they can use. They haven't even thought about that. They have never thought about how can they enhance the retail experience for those Chinese tourists. And I mean, if some merchants, the biggest thing they might have done was like implementing a window sticker, or maybe decorating a window display for Chinese New Year. And we're hoping that they will have so much more Chinese customers by doing so. And of course they did not, because it is not a punctual thing to do. It is, we recommend, or I recommend to all our listeners out there, to all those businesses out there, if you want to prepare for those tourists coming back, think about a China strategy for your business. It really needs to be a kind of strategy. How can I understand and engage better with these customers? How can I reach out to them? How can I implement really effective marketing activities? in store, but also, of course, in China. And how can I, and I think this is one of the really most important topics, use the time right now. And I think all of you are willing to do so. That's why you are on this call. So you've already done the next step. Use the time now to engage with these customers, to better understand them, to better understand their demands, to better understand the culture. Train your teams accordingly, and then you can be on the, and also maybe you should also look at your product fit. So do I have the right products available? Do I have the right services available to actually meet those demands? And then I'm very sure you'll be on the winning side. And now I have, you know, what I hear quite often is, I do not have the capacity in my business to do so. I do not have the resources. I do not have Chinese speaking staff. I do not have an own marketing department, and so on. I very often get to hear this. You do not have to. You just need to know who to talk to. And there are so many experts on the field. We have so many of them on the call today. You can reach out to COTRI if you want to learn more about how to learn more about Chinese customers, how to reach them. You can reach out to us at Planet. You can reach out to all those wonderful people out there, and they will help you to really get your business ready. So.
Okay, thanks a lot for that. And yes, the good news is for those people you just talked about is that if you invest a little bit of money and effort to have more satisfied customers, this will save you a lot of social media marketing money, where you are one voice out of 10,000 voices, and it's very hard to be heard in this sound multiple sounds. Whereas if you, as you said, think a bit more about, okay, how can I enhance the experience of my customer so that that customer will tell their friends back home, this is a nice place, these are nice people, this is so that this will probably be more effective and costing you much less money, to be sure.
Totally agree.
So we come to our last speaker, Gazi, and so sorry to keep you for but it's certainly last not least. And you have been talking a lot about something we are talking a lot about as well, which is kinship economy. So, and I know that this is something in your company you're not only talking about, you're also living it. And so therefore, the last word is to you actually today. So tell us a bit about yourself, your company, and also how you see that for the Chinese market, this idea of a kinship economy can help you to be successful.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And I think it's time very well spent because it's in the beautiful beaches of Albania. So looking out into the sea, I'm doing this conversation. And thank you very much for the invitation and for the interesting insights I got from having a look at the eBook, which you have produced. I think that this discussion is very timely because once the COVID crisis started, I think we were all in a very survival mode, not really understanding what's happening. And I think that the first thing we did as a company is we took our time to really understand what's really happening and spend a lot of quality time with our partners in Asia and in China. And speaking of that, just want to say a few words about the company. We're an international based company, tour operator. So we are and I think your placement of my talk at the end, I think makes sense because in a way we connect all the dots. So we as a travel operator and tour operator produce the whole package where we connect to the hotel, the bus company, the products that we sell to our partners. And we serve to 12 markets in Asia, where China has clearly become the most important ones in terms of volume. And we saw the very good numbers in the last 3 years. So what we did as a company is we got in what we could master. And what you could master was something which we could talk to our partners, communicate to them, and really understand what are the pain points. And the pain points were not clear at that time. So we evolved with time together with the pain points. And based on this, we decided to get engaged in something which was very, very interesting. And that is on dealing, first of all, to address their needs, which is their existential needs. So we as a company felt that there was a need for masks at that time, and there was a need for medical equipment, which we could gather in Europe at that time because pandemic had not arrived in Europe. So I can tell you that we were the best client of DHL to send packages to China. And this was something which we really felt is something which we felt the partners would be doing for us as well. So we send them over as donations. And this was a very appreciative act by the partners. And then by being in touch with them, we just saw that when this period was over, it was time to go back to work. So we tailored made programs for them based on a destination letter, based on safety and hygiene, like which other countries which could be, let's say, the safest country to travel when things get better. So after we started sending them pre-presentations, we got feedback from them and we worked. And then the first ones were in English, but then the later ones were done all in Mandarin, Chinese. And I think they were very well developed. They were very well received. And with each presentation, we got feedback, which was very constructive. And we tried to introduce this constructive feedback in the next presentations. So now the presentations we have now is a portfolio which attracts all the regions of the Balkans, where it's our mainstay and our main stage, but even Eastern and Central Europe. And we played what makes us stand out, as a company, and what makes this region, the Balkans, stand out. And one thing which we really realized was that the history, the past history is a lot of in common, but at the same time, we played on the element of hospitality, which the region is known for. And especially now, all the guests, including the Chinese guests, what they want is safety, is hygiene, and they even asked whether we had in our company a manager of hygiene and distancing rules. This is a very good question which made me think. And as an entrepreneur, my answer is not why. My answer is why not. So we thought about it. And Wolfgang, in my next organizational organogram, if you see an hygiene, a marketing manager or hygiene manager, you know where the source came from. So this is something which we did. And I think it was very, very well received. But what was most important, I think this was a moment when the lemon was turned into lemonade, where we really bonded much better with our partners, because before it was like go, go, go all the time. We all were very busy. But now that we are talking with them, they have more time in their hands. They're more willing to talk. They're more willing to talk about products that we can co-develop. And I want to use the term co-develop, because it's not only developed by us. It's we discuss, we have open discussions, then we get there so that we are ready now. We have a portfolio of new products we didn't have before. So I believe that we are ready and we're waiting for the new challenge. And one more element which I need to add to the discussion is that I'm very, very much impressed with the attitude, the positive attitude, the willingness and the commitment of the hotel suppliers, restaurant suppliers, who are ready to do anything possible for the Chinese market. But something which I have to commend all the suppliers was that nobody charged us anything for cancellation fees, which we would pass over to our partners in China when things started. Everybody felt in the same shoes, and this is something which I believe the Chinese partners much appreciate. Over to you, Wolfgang.
Yes, thank you, Gazi. Well, this is very, very interesting. And of course, this is something which I think you did very well, and what has been commented a lot in China upon that companies who stayed with us in China when we were in trouble, so that these are our true friends, and this is something which is a good thing to do everywhere, but I think in China even more so. And so to say that this is not just your business partners, but these are people who are your partners, and that and this is something what we are also saying nowadays. Even if you did not do this in January and February, you can still do this today. You can still just communicating with your business partners in China, just saying, how are you? So what's going on? How is there any way we can help you? Do you need, for instance, as you just said, do you need information? Can we give you information about what's the current situation here? So this is something which will be helpful, but also be seen as a gesture of taking these people serious and showing that this is an important thing for you. This is why we talked about airports a lot today, of course. And I think that's another example. Chinese travelers don't need a sign in Chinese saying departure in Chinese. If we have the pictogram of the aircraft flying up, and you see where the people go for check-in, so obviously this is departure. So anybody in China who has enough money to buy an air ticket is clever enough to find the departure without it's written there in Chinese. But it's a very good idea to have this sign there.
I would adjust a little bit because they do get lost in the airport very often.
Yes, but not only Chinese, but so this is also a very good idea to do this, because this is showing respect to the customers and showing, yes, we acknowledge that you are among our non-English, non-local language speaking customers, one of the important or the most important other group, and we acknowledge this. Never mind if it is necessary or not. It's helping, of course, better than not, but it's also the bigger part of it is certainly that they say, hey, look, they also wrote this there in Chinese, so they want to help us so we don't get lost. And this is something in many ways, I think now Gazi has given us a very good example. And this is what is this idea of this kinship economy, that you try to make people feel belonging and thereby, and this is maybe last thing to say from my side. In China, you have a society which is very much inside and outside. So if your friends, your family, you can ask from them much more than you can ask from friends and family here. So if you're inside the group, people do everything for you. But if you're outside, if they don't know you, they do much less for you. So they will not care for somebody they never met, they don't know, who they don't have any shared friends with. So if you want to avoid all the stories of Chinese people being careless or cheating in business or so, this is, I think, the key answer is get inside their network and not stay outside the network, and then the behavior is changing completely. So with this, thank you very, very much for all the panelists of the second panel. I think that has been very useful. And before we give over to our host for the last words, we still have the lucky draw. And as we are running behind, I had my colleagues doing the lucky draw out of the more than 2,500 people who registered. So we're very proud about that. And I can tell you that where is that here? So the three names of the winners of the book are Johann Cavallini from Villa San Michel is the first one, and the second one is Beverlyn Imali Akivaga from the African Hartebeest Safari Limited. So obviously a colleague from Africa. And the third one is Jane Lee from the company Heaven's Portfolio, which, if I'm not mistaken, is based in Hong Kong, actually, I think. So we have, I have to thank our co-worker who did this. So we have I think a European gentleman and an African lady and a Chinese lady. So couldn't be better. So the three of the, I don't know if they participate at the moment, very good. If not, we will inform them. And so of course for everybody else, I'm afraid you have to think about buying a book. With this, again, I think I'm really happy, and I see in the chat that also our participants have been quite happy with the content. I think it was full of information, and when we put this together, the idea was to have different views, different perspectives, and well, if I may say so myself, I think we, in a way, achieved this, make this approach into a fruitful way of doing things. With this, I hand over to Jan, who will see us out. And of course, from my side, for all of you, stay healthy, number one. Stay alive as a business, hoping that the better times are soon to come, and prepare for the Chinese market. Now you have maybe some time for that, and it will be paying back in the future. Jan, over to you, and thank you very much again.
Thank you, Wolfgang, and thank you very much to the speakers, to the participants. It's been very interesting, it's been entertaining, and least of all, not thank you to Wolfgang for putting this together. It has confirmed that our decision, in my view, it has confirmed that our decision to make a trade show on China in 5 to 6 weeks is correct. There has been raised a lot of interesting points which we want to dig into. Pick up a few. Technology, China is light year ahead of what we're doing in Europe. That will be interesting to dig into. Anders told us about 300 million Chinese getting into retirement. Very interesting point. What will that mean to economic growth if 20% of the population is going into retirement, even more of the workforce? A lot of interesting things to discuss in a trade show. This show will start September 14th, and it will be 5 days. We will have keynote speakers for 3 days. We are putting in the program together these days. Day one will be on, we call it Understanding China, or Building Bridges. We have heard Nicolette talk about building bridges today. We will dig a bit more into that, about China history, China economics. There's a lot of interesting subjects, and also about Chinese technology. Day two will be about outbound, and day three will be on inbound and domestic. Domestic tourism is changing a lot in China these days. We will all days, all these 3 days plus 2 more days, have virtual where exhibitors can exhibit their presentation, their videos, and there will be visitors, and you can connect through our various technologies and have one-to-one meetings. As I said in the introduction when we started this show, it is not only a BUZZ event, We are doing this with the GITF together, which will make sure that we have Chinese expertise and access to Chinese visitors and exhibitors. So with these words, enough of talk for today, and have a good time and enjoy to see you in a few weeks again. Thank you.
Okay, Tadien.
Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye, thank you.